folks. Welcome to another edition of BritTrack Virtual, the virtual DragonCon panel. Today we're going to do classic Doctor Who. My name is Rob. They call me Rob in the Hat, which is funny, I know, because I don't have one on. And I have with me some very distinguished guests. Over here to my to this direction, we have Alan Siler of Cosmic Press. And then beyond him, oh, sorry about that, Alan. Go right ahead.
I just said hi.
Oh, hello. And then next to him, we have Anthony Williams from the Watchers in the Fourth Dimension podcast.
Greetings.
All right. Underneath me, we have Bill Ritch, the man who brought Doctor Who to Georgia.
True story.
Well, we're going to want to hear about it in just a bit, Bill. Over to Bill's immediate direction. We
My right from what I've seen.
There you go. Thank you. We have General Whovian fan Matthew Brewer. Hello, Matthew.
Hi, everyone.
All right. And then, last but certainly not least, over there on the end, underneath Anthony, we have Nathan Laws, host of the 42 Cast and co-host of the Time Streams podcast. Hey, Nathan.
Hey, how's it going?
All right, doing well. So, we are ready to talk about some classic Who, aren't we?
Always.
Yep.
We are.
Excellent. Well, you know, there's lots of great developments for fans of classic Who. Alan, why don't you start us off and tell us about what you're most excited about?
A lot of things, actually, but one of the cool things that's coming up is this huge multi-platform thing called Time Lord Victorious, which isn't really classic, but it's the most exciting thing that's going to be happening. Other than that, we have upcoming Blu-ray releases for Classic Who and some animations coming out that have been announced, or sort of announced.
Yay.
Well, you brought up the Time Lord Victorious. There are some Eighth Doctor's things. He's kind of classic.
Well, that's true.
We count him as classic.
Yeah.
He is the bridge between the two. So yeah, so that works.
All right. Anthony, what about you?
So immediately we've got Fury from the Deep, the animation coming out. I think it comes out in the UK. I want to say late September, beginning of October, that kind of time frame. That's very exciting. And then, of course, it's probably only a matter of weeks before they announce the next edition of the collection.
Ooh.
Yay!
So that will be very exciting when that happens as well.
Yep.
Are there any rumors as to what that might be?
Generally speculated season 20.
Yeah, that's the one that has been most talked about. And there are people who have known that interviews have been done for it. So yeah, it's the most likely one. Of
course, in the US, that will be marketed as Peter Davison season 2.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's the season with the 5 Doctors in it. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yep. 5 Doctors.
Nice. All right. Nathan, let's go down to you. What are you excited about for Classic Who?
Well, I would love to say that the news that came out, but it's from the Daily Mirror, that 7 new episodes are being returned. So, but that's not. That hasn't been confirmed by anyone reputable, so that's too bad. But just like we were talking about with audio stuff and tie-ins with Big Finish and whatnot, I am really enjoying the 3rd and 4th Doctor adventures. I think that they are fantastic, and even though, of course, John Pertwee isn't around to do those 3rd Doctor adventures, Tim Treloar has been doing a fantastic job evoking the spirit of Pertwee in those stories. So yeah, that's my jam.
Excellent. All right, and Matthew, what about you? What are you excited about with Classic Who?
Right now, just trying to get in touch with my long delayed season 3 Tom Baker. So I'll be enjoying that. But the big news which is Tom Baker related, is one, waiting for the team up with Tom Baker and David Tennant's Doctor in the audio, which I was surprised, and then getting a classic era Doctor Who with Tom and the daughter of Elizabeth Sladen, Sadie Miller, playing
Yes.
Sarah Jane in one of the stories. So that is like a highlight, a major highlight in the audio. So I did not expect that could ever happen, but I hoped. But that was an amazing surprise. So I'm going to be hoping I'm going to pick that one up automatically.
Her name is Sadie something, right?
Sadie Miller.
Sadie Miller, yeah.
Sadie Miller.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to that too.
Mm-hmm.
Bill.
So I have not been following what is happening with Classic Who a lot recently, like the past 10 years or something like that. But I'm a consumer of the audios when they come out for obvious reasons, considering my other hobby, and so I'm always excited about that. I just haven't paid attention to what's on the horizon, so I'm ill prepared for this question.
Well, what's your favorite audio that's Classic Who related that's come out in the last year?
Gosh, I think most since I'm way behind on that, I really loved a lot of the Lost Doctor kind of things from I guess, how long ago is that now? It's probably 10 years or something. Time is flying by for me since I'm much older than all of you guys.
Well,
and not yet regenerated.
I will jump in and say, since Matthew mentioned the Tennant and Fourth Doctor team up, they just announced 2 more that are going to follow it. One with Tennant and Peter Davison, and one with Tennant and Colin Baker. And those are going to be out sometime next year. And I'm really excited about the Colin Baker one. It's called Wink. And it's going to be the Weeping Angel, but it takes place on a planet of people who have no sight.
Ooh.
I know. Exactly. So I think that's a really
idea.
That's going to be a very interesting one.
That does sound good. Anyone else excited for any audios that are coming out?
Are they going to perhaps try to do a Doctor's Daughter series, or is that
they already have?
They have.
I missed that.
They already have.
Yeah. I'm way behind.
It's tangentially related, but next year they are doing a big master box set that will basically feature a bunch of the classic series and the new series masters, and I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
Masterful.
Right. I think yes. And at the same time, they're doing a box set for Eric Roberts' master as well, I believe.
Yes, they are.
Yes. Or as I like to think of him as Bruce the Galactic Despot.
My name is not funny.
There's no corner of Whodom that Big Finish will not cover.
Yep.
You leave 30 seconds of screen time where you don't know where a character is. They will shoehorn an adventure in there.
Well, I remember once I saw a list someone made of all the the alien races or things that Big Finish hadn't done yet in Doctor Who. It was like 6 items, and one of those was the Sensorites, which now is Susan's War. They've done the Sensorites in Big Finish, so
I'm still waiting.
Too, right?
I'm still waiting for my Bandrel Empire mini-series.
So, why don't we talk a bit more about the animations that are coming out? Who has actually seen like a reconstruction of Fury from the Deep?
Yep.
Excellent.
I need to see it.
So, Nathan, go ahead and give us like an outline of what we have to look forward to.
Oh, so Fury from the Deep, that's one where the Doctor and company arrive on sort of this beach, sort of natural gas processing plant kind of thing, and it's being taken over by these weed creatures that are coming out of the ocean. If they touch you, you become possessed by them and start transforming into them. So it's a story where it's kind of the base under siege season, and so you've got that whole thing going with it. And it's also Victoria's final story, and because of that, they give her a lot more to do than she had gotten in the rest of the season, and she gets a lot of development in that one story. So yeah, there's there's a lot going on there, and of course, there's the famous foam scene at the end. So.
I don't know. The phone scene?
Well, yeah, I mean, we do have footage of an outtake of that, so like that's why like we actually know what that looks like. But in the Troughton years, they were like obsessed with the foam machine, and so they would just like turn it on, just spew foam all over the set in several different stories. And so yeah, it's one of the ones where that features prominently. And like I say, that scene where they're there in the plant that's been completely taken over by the weed creatures, and there's just like foam like everywhere. There is footage of that, but it's like not the actual take they used. It's like a setup take or something.
The BBC were busy trying to amortize their foam machine that season.
It was quite an investment.
Yeah, of course, it came back in Seeds of Death prominently also.
2 years, 2 seasons.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the toothpaste era in the mid '80s.
Yes.
Yes, with the Santarans and that horrible slug creature from Twin Dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
Nestor. All right. So Fury from the Deep. There's some other rumors that have been coming out about this, right?
Yeah, so the Daily Mirror have come out and speculated that the next two that will be coming out will be The Evil of the Daleks and The Abominable Snowman. They seem to be moving at a pace of 2 a year. They have 2 animation teams working on them, one of which is, of course, Big Finish's animation arm, Big Finish Creative. And I'm not sure on the company name of the other one, but it's led by a lady whose name is Anne-Marie. And they're now working these work streams in parallel to make sure that they can get 2 out a year. So it seems plausible. I mean, those are probably the 2 that people would expect next. So,
And
so
go ahead, Alan. I'm sorry.
I was going to say Evil is, the last big Dalek story we got for a long time. I was kind of thinking that would be one that they would save for the 60th anniversary year.
I think they might be saving DMP, Dalek's Master Plan, for
That's
the 60th.
possible. Well, I think it'll just take that long to get it done.
Yeah.
If not longer. So maybe the first half of it will come out for the 60th anniversary.
Well, they only have to do 9 of the 12, right? So
they'll do 12 of 12 because that's how they roll these days.
Okay.
So do they have all the audio for Dalek Master Plan?
Yep.
Yeah, we have audio for everything, Bill.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember a few years ago they released CDs of all the audio for the Missing Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Plus, they have that episode that University of Central Lancaster did, Mission to the Unknown, where they remounted the whole thing with period equipment and techniques and everything. That has been turned over to the BBC for use on an upcoming release. So I would love to see that included with the Master Plan animation.
Yeah, and that whole remount was really, really well done.
Yeah,
it was very, very impressive, and it helps that it's one of the few stories that doesn't have the Doctor or any of the companions in it. It's a standalone little one-parter that's really a prelude to Dalek's Master Plan.
Mm-hmm.
But because of that, the characters that you see in that story aren't characters you really see again. So it makes it a little easier to handle because they're not recasting any of these well-known, well-loved characters. It works quite well.
Yeah, the delegates, the alien delegates, we do see later in the story. But if you go from that remount filmed into the animation, it's not going to matter if they don't look exactly the same. So I think
they didn't look exactly alike even in the show, because if you look at the photo of Mission to the Unknown and then what we get in Dalek Master Plan, there's aliens that are there in one and not in the other, and they don't quite look the same. So they have attention.
But you might not have noticed that had you seen them weeks and weeks apart.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that Mission to the Unknown originally wasn't the main character acted out by Nicholas Courtney?
No.
Edward D'Souza.
He was in Master Plan, but his character came in Master Plan. It was a character called Mark Corey in Mission.
Okay. I knew he was in there somewhere.
And
That's why.
was that maybe going to be a spin-off that they had thought about or something like that? Or was, in other words, what they call a backdoor pilot?
So
No.
no, but kind of yes. So Terry Nation actually thought of it about a year later, and then wanted to use some of the characters from the Daleks Master Plan in his pilot, even though he'd killed them off in Daleks Master Plan, or I guess technically Dennis Spooner killed them off, but what does that matter? So Bill, you're not wrong, but it wasn't quite the intent at the time. It's kind of an afterthought of maybe we can reuse some of these characters and some of the concepts in a Dalek series.
And Big Finish did do an audio of that pilot script for that Dalek series that they actually had Gene Marsh play Sarah Kingdom in that audio. So I mean, there is a version of that if you want to hear it.
Right.
And it's quite good. I mean, I'm not sure it would have necessarily worked as a standalone series, but as in isolation, the Big Finish production is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, I knew Terry Nation was anxious to get like the Daleks their own show, especially on American television. And
well, so
the money is
after the Power of the Daleks, that's when he started trying to ship it to the BBC, and the BBC said, "Thank you, but no thank you." Then he tried to take it to America, and they. And I think it was ABC. It might have been CBS, but it was one of those two. Took one look at it and said, "No one here has even heard of this. Why would we do this?" So it got nowhere.
Yeah, that's what I'd heard. But at least it made him have to stay in England and keep writing episodes and other stuff.
He moved on to, I think it was The Baron at that time. That's the other show he was working on.
I heard about that. And then he did. Oh, I know we're getting off track here, but then he did Survivors after that, right?
He did. That was quite a while later.
It was, yeah.
Right.
I think Survivors was maybe 76, 77.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, great show, but yeah, Terry Nation, absolute genius. Bit of a hack, bluntly. He wrote a lot of stuff. Some of it great, some of it not so great. But you know. He had some great concepts that he came up with.
I remember he wrote a few episodes for MacGyver in the 80s, and I was excited.
He was actually one of the people that I think started MacGyver, because he did a lot of the little things at the beginning that where they call them they were like 5-minute things that really weren't related. Yeah, it was the cold opening, but they actually had a word for it in the MacGyver universe or something like that. So I remember that, and he wrote a lot of those just independently of the rest of the episode. I haven't seen the new one to know if they're doing the same thing. I bet not. So
no idea. All right, I'm going to steer this panel back on track here for a little bit. So they're talking about there's a rumor that they're doing the Abominable Snowman and the Evil of the Daleks.
Yep.
So, what is this other rumor that Nathan talked about? Would anyone like to address that?
Yeah.
Well, all right. So there's a few things going on, because not too long ago there was a post from God, and I forgot his name that basically one of the people who's been investigating the existence of Missing Adventures said like he knows of 7 episodes that are in the hands of private collectors that need to be returned to the BBC, but he didn't name names or anything. But now there's suddenly been a bunch of articles written saying 7 episodes about to be released, but I think that's all conjecture and wishful thinking.
So what's really funny is the chap who originally said, I had 6, and this somehow got inflated to 7 in the recent rumors.
Yeah.
He was the one, he said this in a bunch of interviews for an online convention, much like this. And then all of this was rehashed in an article a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
And then he promptly denied it on Twitter, even though they were just rehashing things that he had said himself.
And he said this back in April or March. So that isn't a new thing that he said. This was and some news service picked it up like 6 months after the fact, and now everybody thinks it's new.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, there's some weird politics, I think, going on amongst the missing episodes hunters, and that's kind of what you're seeing there.
All right, so I'm gonna ask another question. This is going to be for Matthew and Bill. What of the so far animated episodes and or the lost episodes that they've come out with in the last 10 years that you were really excited to see?
Well, I think the problem is I'm looking for one that hasn't been released yet, and that's where all my hopes are, which is of course Dalek Master Plan, and because I've read the it's a sort of a long synopsis of it that came out. I haven't read the script, I admit, but I did read a long synopsis of it that was, I think, trying to be a story, but yeah, I would really love to see that. It's a great adventure too. So that's the one I'm looking forward to most. But they haven't started that really.
Right.
Yeah.
How about you, Matthew?
It's been a while since I've seen any. I've only seen like two animated ones, and that was Shada, which was half animated, half, and then Shada, and the other one was the first The Power of the Dialects, which I actually want to get on Blu-ray because I think when they were redoing it with the real life models of the Daleks. I would love to see how they would incorporate the animation with the real life models of it. So
no, I think that's what's happening. They're reanimating basically the character animation in the original one was so rushed and underfunded that it just doesn't look good at all.
Yeah.
So imagine all the Dalek models and everything are going to stay the same. It's the character animation that's being updated.
Yeah. Well, I saw pictures of the Dalek models actually being made with success, so that's why I was like, So yeah, I saw pictures of it. So
okay.
So that's something, and you're right. The animation looks looks rushed, but to see that they're taking more time to get that episode and do it a more polished episode, I feel like that's going to be a very interesting. Especially, this is Patrick Troughton's first episode, and you really want to get your first Doctor's episodes as a very polished, looking good for him.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'm going to open that up to the rest of the crew. What has been your favorite animated or missing adventure that's come out in the last few years? How about Alan? Oh, sorry, Anthony.
No. Anthony, you go ahead.
I'm a really big fan of the Macroterror. It's a little B-movie-ish at times. It's giant crabs with a base under siege, but it's just a lot of fun, I think, as a story. It's got a very kind of kitschy vibe to it. The animation was done well, and they took the opportunity to do kind of a reimagining of it. The big downside is they cut a very fun scene from the first episode that narratively doesn't serve much purpose, but a lot of fans were kind of outraged that they took that decision to cut it down. But overall, they took the opportunity where they had these huge crabs that they were virtually immobile on the original set. They took the opportunity to make them a lot more animated with the animation, and I think it just worked really, really well.
I have it on DVD, and I have not seen it yet. I've been so lazy, but it's already on my list to watch.
It's really, really well done. Yeah. I'm going to go with Shada. I thought that it was a really smart way to complete a story that has been, there have been many attempts to bring it to fruition over the years. And I think it was really well done. Mixing the animation with the live action filming is not jarring, even though you think it would be. And by all, you would expect it to be. But getting the original cast back together to record the dialogue that wasn't, I thought it was really, really well done, and I really enjoyed it.
Especially the ending, especially that ending.
Yeah.
Anything with Ron Laward in it, I'm all for it. So I agree.
I was going to ask you, Rob, what was your favorite part about the Shada animation?
Well, I honestly, I have not seen the new one. The last time I saw Shada, it was the webcast that was done on the BBC website years ago with Paul McGann and Lala Ward.
Yep.
And before that, ironically, it was back in the 80s where the local Doctor Who fan club had people acting out the missing scenes. And
my
Bill,
gosh.
I believe you played the Doctor.
I believe I did. Yes, I often played Tom Baker because of my height and my really long scarf that was made for me. So, yes, like that. I have one that's a little more earth tones, and I have the really big 25-foot long ones with all the bright colors in it. So one of my coworkers' mother back at that time knitted it for me, knitted them both for me. So it was really nice. It's like, wow. And that was, nobody had seen Doctor Who in the United States except the few of us who were getting our tapes and stuff. So nobody knew about it back then. That's one of the things I remember most about Classic Who, being an American fan, is the isolation. Like, we're fans of something that nobody's ever heard of.
I hear you, man.
Yeah, Colin was there too.
Oh, yeah.
And Rob.
Oh, yeah. I met.
You were like a kid, though.
I was 13.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That tells you how old I am.
I stumbled on Doctor Who when I was 5, and there was no one to talk to at school or anything because it was something I discovered on PBS, and I fell in love with it. But yeah, like no one, I never had any friends or anything who watched Doctor Who.
So I'm going to say, even growing up in Britain, I mean, I was born in '87. So by the time I was aware of Doctor Who, it was the early to mid 90s, wasn't showing on air. And I stumbled on it because my dad was bringing home VHS tapes of the show he watched when he was my age, And even then, like, even growing up in the UK in that time period, like, there was no one to talk to about the show.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. You grew up during the wild years. Wilderness years.
The drought.
Yes.
Yeah, unlike you guys, I did it with I had New Who the Stank to get me the classic era. So, and I started collecting DVDs of the classic era more because I thought that would be more. As much I could see New Who anytime on BBC America or any other network, but you don't get to see Classic Who on television that much. So I just went. And that was when I was 1 year out of college, about less than a year out of college. That's when I went.
So I don't usually ask this on Doctor Who panels, but Matthew, I'm going to make an exception in your case. Who's your favorite classic Doctor?
I think the scarf and the hair kind of answers that question. But for people who haven't known, it's of course Tom Baker. That was my first classic Doctor would be John Pertwee, but Tom kind of was I related more to Tom as he was a little bit alienish and a lot aloof, and I feel like I'm sort of in that zany area. So
I'm with you there. John Pertwee was actually the first Doctor I ever met, but Tom Baker was the one that I emulated. And when I met John Pertwee years ago, I had this scarf on.
Yep.
Yeah.
If it weren't so hot, I would probably have brought down my scarf and worn it. But
I have a fan on.
It's way too hot.
I'm in my basement right now, and it's not that bad.
There we go. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the audio goodness that's been coming from Big Finish and other places. We'll start with Big Finish. Matthew, you talked about Out of Time with Tom Baker and David Tennant.
Yes, that was a surprise because I thought Tom would. I know Tom did a little bit with the other Doctors, but to see the Tom Baker, the Fourth Doctor, interact with a New Who Doctor, especially when it was David Tennant, that was wow. I never thought that would happen. And that was like, wow, we get to see Tom interact with a classic Doctor. We've never seen that in the classic series. We've never seen him interact with other Doctors in the history until the big 50th anniversary one, and that was with a whole bunch of Doctors. But now you see both Doctors coming together, and that's a big thing. That's a big thing. See the Fourth Doctor's future and interact with that.
Alan, what about you? You're a Big Finish fan?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
What classic audios have you listened to recently?
I'm gonna forget the name of it, but there was a unit box set that had the modern unit characters with the classic, Joe Grant and Captain Yates and Benton, and it was really, really well done. And when you hear Joe and now I forgot her name.
Kate?
No.
Osgood.
Osgood, thank you.
Osgood,
Okay. You can edit this bit out too.
Oh no.
When you see how well Joe Grant and Osgood mesh together in this story, it's just amazing. And anytime you have Katie Manning, revisiting Joe Grant, she just immediately falls right back into the character, whether it be you playing the character as it was in the 70s or a modern grown-up version of her. She just nails the character every single time.
I loved her in the Death of Joe Grant, the part of the Legacy of Time, where she plays Joe Jones.
Mm-hmm.
So then goes back and meets Tim Treloar's Third Doctor.
Yeah, that was really amazing.
It's really good. All right, Nathan, how about you? Some audio goodness that you've liked.
Well, my problem is that since we've gone into lockdown, my time to listen to the audios was my commute, and so I don't think I've listened to anything since March, and I'm like, oh man, I'm thinking about it right now that's really bad that I haven't listened to anything since March. I think one of the last things that I listened to before that was so they're doing the First Doctor Adventures now, where they have David Bradley and the other people who played those characters. They played the actors in Adventure in Space and Time, but now they're playing the characters with Big Finish. And so, doing the first season TARDIS crew, and it was the volume 3 sets for that. So it was they did a historical and a science fiction story. The historical one was called The Phoenicians. So very typical for the First Doctor era of just giving it a title of like the what time period they were in or what group they were interacting with. I forget what the other one was called, but it was a very weird sort of time travel-y, messed up time kind of story. More like an Edge of Destruction than anything else I can think of in sort of the classic era. And well, I still have problems with having other people play, because it's different from Tim Treloar or Elliot Chapman, who played who plays Ben Jackson in The Big Finish, where they clearly study the characters and try to emulate the performances. In the First Doctor Adventures, they're not even trying. I mean, they are basically doing like, this is a completely new take on those characters. And so sometimes I have problems with the performances and how the characters come off, but the writing is really good, and they're definitely trying to evoke that First Doctor era. And so I like a lot of it for just that factor of, the stories are starting to feel more like authentic, 60s Doctor Who. And so I kind of like that.
Cool. All right. Anthony.
So I want to give a shout out to an audio from their early adventures range called The Daughter of the Gods, that was written by a friend of mine, David K. Barnes, which is a crossover story with the First Doctor and the Second Doctor. And of course, these days in those stories, they're being imitated by Peter Purvis and Fraser Hines, respectively. So they are double doing double duty. Peter Purvis as both Stephen Taylor in the first Doctor and Fraser Hines as both Jamie McCrimmon and the second Doctor. And it was a really cool crossover, really well done story. And it was an absolute joy to behold. And I think for me, in what's come out in the last 12 months from Big Finish, that's a real highlight.
I have to agree with you. I loved Daughter of the Gods. Oh my God. So good.
Actually, in hindsight, I think that's the last one that I listened to. Thank you for jogging my memory.
You're welcome, sir.
All right. Bill, what about you?
Well, mostly Karen, my significant other, does all the listening for these things and just reports to me. So I really have not done it myself because I'm working on editing audio more than anything else. So that's one of my hobbies. By the way, I'm retired now, so I actually have more time. So I'll probably pick up some of these if I can ever drive anywhere again. Because like Nathan, I had a very long drive and I could listen to stuff there then, but I don't have that anymore. So I am way behind on these. I remember what I liked were I think it was, I can't remember what Big Finish called it. It was like alternative versions of Doctor Who.
Unbound.
Yes.
And I liked some of those, and some of them I thought, yeah, you're just experimenting. you're not in the real world at all. but I really enjoyed those. Yes, the relatively real world.
Exactly.
But I did like the idea of it, and it, it's, I just say, oh, that's that set of Doctors from Earth 2. Yes, I really like that.
And one of them is still around in audios, David Waters.
Yes. Well, David Warner, one of my favorite British actors, period. And he's in everything, and he's great in everything.
And I mean, I've got to say, what he's been doing with Big Finish in the Further Adventures of Bernie Summerfield range has been really enjoyable.
And that's someone I would love to have show up in the television, who is Bernie Summerfield.
Mm-hmm.
I love Bernie Summerfield.
She's great, and she's so interesting. And why don't they? There may be a rights issue. I have no idea, but it'd be cheap for the television people to do that. So maybe we should write them.
There you go. Yes.
Start an aggressive letter writing campaign.
That's right.
There was a 12th Doctor book called Big Bang Generation that actually has Benny Summerfield and her crew from her audio adventures in it, meeting Capaldi's Doctor.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Cool.
I'm guessing it was written by Paul Cornell. Because that's how you skirt the rights issues. Is if Paul Cornell writes it, he can include Benny in anything because he was the creator. So,
yeah. All right. So, Alan, you mentioned Time Lord Victorious earlier. And then, of course, I believe you, Matt, that mentioned Sadie Miller taking on her mother's role as Sarah Jane.
Yes.
She's actually doing a early version of the Revenge of the Cyberman script, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it's the early version of that script. Now it's coming back to me right now, but it was an early version of that script. So, and it's because when I heard the news that was going to happen and that Sadie was actually going to take over her mom's role. But because when Elizabeth Sladen's death happened, I felt like we got all of Tom's runs in the Big Finishes with the other companions, almost, but didn't get that much. So now we kind of get a connect. We do have that, even though it's best is what we got, and I thought that was. If they're going to do it, just do it that way. Don't get someone who is close to Elizabeth Sladen and go from there. Because I believe that will be the best route, and to honor her mom that way.
Yeah, you can't always get that when you're, if you luck out with a descendant that has the same kind of voice. But you can get. I think it's legitimate to cast other people to do a part and try to evoke more than imitate the character. I mean, to capture the character, but not necessarily capture the actor.
Yeah, because I think we've had more success with complete recasts rather than using relatives. Because I've heard David Troughton do the second Doctor, and it's not as good as Fraser Hines, in my opinion. He has more vocal. I can hear his father's voice a little bit in him, but the acting, it's not the same like style of acting. Whereas when Fraser's doing it, his voice sounds more different than Patrick Troughton's, but he gets the acting right. He gets the character right. He embodies that character more. And it's been the same thing with Daisy Ashford doing Liz Shaw, where I did not really think that she was as good as some of the other recasts that we've had. Like, I was not hearing Liz Shaw when she was speaking. So, but yet Tim Treloar and Elliot Chapman have been fantastic as the roles that they've done. So, I don't know that it's always a relative is like the shoe-in like that,
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree, but it took that long. I felt that could be a way to integrate Sarah Jane back into the audio finishes. And then if it doesn't work with Sadie, they can go a different route. But that would be one way to incorporate her back, because I've kind of missed. I want to see more stories, especially if we get some with the third Doctor sound alike and go from there.
So that is a good question. A lot of the classic Who actors are getting up there. Tom Baker's 95, I believe, this year.
Wow.
Yes.
He was that.
So, what are y'all's opinions on recasting for the audios, or maybe even for videos later on? Alan, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Oh gosh, I have mixed feelings about it. I think if it's obviously if it's done well, it's one thing. And there's a couple of people, Jacob Dudman, who works for Big Finish, who does and this isn't classic, but he does a remarkable 10th Doctor and 11th Doctor. I mean, just nails it. And then you have, and now I'm of course blanking on this name too. The one who used to do the 4th Doctor impersonations.
John Coleshaw.
Yes, Coleshaw.
And then you have John Coleshaw, who is just the most natural mimic. I mean, he captures every single character or actor that he ever does, and he's done a number of Doctor Who characters, and he's now doing the Brigadier in Big Finish stories. And so if you have somebody like that who understands the character and really gets and is able to convince you that that's who you're listening to, then I love it. And it's better than not having the character involved. You know what I mean? It would be a shame to not ever have any Brigadier stories in Big Finish.
So Alan, were you at the performance that Marap did a few years ago, where we did one of the scripts from the movie, where there were multiple scripts and we sort of combined some together and we made our own audio version of it? We had a guy that we brought in as a ringer to do Tom Baker. He's actually British, and we just recorded him, and he was fantastic.
Yes, he was.
And I don't know how to get to him because, of course, he was a good friend with Sasha.
Yes, he was.
Sasha passed away. We don't know how to, we didn't. Nobody else knew him. So, but he was fantastic.
The funny thing is, Sasha told me that there was a big surprise at the end. He didn't tell me who it was. He didn't give me any details, but he said there's a big surprise at the end. And so we got to the end of the play, and that part rings in, and I was like, oh my God, did he actually get
Tom Baker?
And I thought, if anybody would do it, Sasha would have found a way.
Yes, Sasha would have.
The more I listened, and the more I could tell that it wasn't exactly Tom Baker, but it was so close.
It was too young for one thing.
Yeah, it was really, really well done. I was really impressed with it.
Yes, so I'll try to hit up Sasha's father and find out if he knows him, because he was really great, and he would make a great Tom Baker if they need him in the future. And by the way, Tom Baker is 86.
Oh, 86.
I did-
I don't know.
Yes,
Not
only
bad.
Where did
86.
you
It is
get
90, yeah.
95 from?
Still.
Yes.
Still, that's
Oh, all
still good.
right. All right. Well, that's good to know. I'm glad he's not as he's not as up there as I was afraid he was. It's awesome.
No, but for someone who is fond of the grape, shall we say, as Tom Baker is, it's amazing that these people are have got to the age they have gotten.
I mean,
Maybe
you look
he's-
at someone like Winston Churchill and how much he
Yes.
drank and how much he smoked, and he lived into his 90s.
Look at George Burns.
Yes,
Oh God, yeah.
yes. It's like, I think it's honoriness that keeps a lot of people alive. That would certainly explain Churchill.
All right. Well, that was really interesting. I'd like to hear your opinions. Anthony, what about you? What's your opinion on the recasting?
So at the final Wholanta, I sat down with Jason Haig-Ellery for a while, that one of the co-owners of Big Finish. I think he's technically, from a legal perspective, their CEO. And he was telling me he thinks of these roles as much like society views Sherlock Holmes these days. There is no one person who is tied with this character, and these are characters who can be played by others. And I thought there was a certain romance in that. I liked what he was saying. And I think when there is a character who can, not a character, an actor who can mimic the little turns of phrase and the minutiae of the performance, like the way Fraser Hines has Patrick Troughton's vocal cadence down perfectly, I think it can really work. Mm-hmm. Would I want to see Brad Pitt cast as the Fourth Doctor? Absolutely not. Would I want to see it when that sad day inevitably comes, when Tom Baker does pass away? Give it a few years, and yes, I would love to see some work with John Coleshaw playing the role, so we can have some further adventures of the Fourth Doctor. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that.
There was a long time, before Big Finish got Tom Baker, and I always wondered why they just didn't do Fourth Doctor Adventures with Coleshaw.
I think that was. Sorry, go ahead, Anthony.
I was going to say, I think that was out of respect for Tom Baker. They did have him come in and do the voice. Not officially, because they didn't have the license, but it was implied that he was the Ninth Doctor in The Kingmaker. So they were on good terms with him, and he was coming in and doing work for them periodically. But for whatever reason, whether it was legal, whether it was out of respect for Tom Baker, they didn't want to go down that path.
Right.
Yeah, they've historically not recast anyone who is still alive. They wait if someone has passed, they'll recast them. But I mean, Blake Seven, it was a big deal when they actually recast an actress who was still with us. But beyond that, with Dodo, they haven't done anything like with recasting Dodo because Jackie Lane is still alive, and
also because no one really wants to hear the further adventures of Dodo.
Now, come on.
Yeah. Some of the best companion chronicles have been Steven's stories with Dodo, so I don't want to hear that. But anyway.
But Caroline Ford is still alive, yet they have someone else playing Susan in the new First Doctor Adventures.
The First Doctor Adventures are a little bit different, because I mean, Carol Ann Ford still plays Susan in the early adventures, which are the ones that actually have the cast. But because the Adventure in Space and Time did sort of recast on television, those four actors, they feel like they can sort of have this parallel stream of the First Doctor Adventures, and it's still not disrespecting William Russell or Carol Ann Ford, who are still with us.
But they certainly have recast the 10th, 11th, and 12th Doctors. Jacob Dudman basically plays all of them.
Aren't those in like companion chronicle style stories where it's more like a narration rather than a performance? That's how they skirt that issue. And any of the ones where it's like a narration type one, it's like, well, this is just a narration. It's
I understand that.
Yeah. They released a short trip earlier this year called Regeneration Impossible, where it's just Jacob Dudman playing the 11th Doctor and the 12th Doctor and the other characters, only 3. So I thought that was quite, and he does an amazing job. I had to listen to it twice in a row. He does a great job at that. But yeah, that's not classic Who. Sorry, folks. We do tend to drift a little bit, so I appreciate y'all sticking around and listening.
Well, one of the things I would like to hear would be something that MRAP did years and years and years ago, like at the very beginning, gender swap some of the doctors. So you have female versions of the first, second, third, fourth, etc., and things like that for maybe, what do they call them, imaginary adventures or something like that, whatever term they would have it, and it would be a lot of fun.
I don't think this is the matching term for it. It's rule 63, but it'll be in something that kind of a universe. But that would be something. That would be something good, especially now that we have a female doctor.
Yeah, we can gender swap her for later episodes.
Wow. I don't get in trouble.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm always trying to get in trouble.
No, that's actually a good idea, but that would be a very good idea. What if the doctor?
Yeah, it's all a what if. Like I said, it's the imaginary adventures.
Unbound.
Yeah, more Unbound.
Yeah, bring it back.
There you go.
Bring Unbound back.
Yep. Yeah, my comic book background is showing when I talk about imaginary stories.
Yeah, from what I understand, though, the Unbounds didn't do well, which is why they only ever did the 8 that they did.
Yeah.
Sadly, yes.
Yeah, unfortunately. But at least they took the two best ones and made sequels, because I loved David Warner in the Masters of War with the Daleks. Oh, yeah, so good.
Yep. And, what we need are better fans to step up. And seriously, you need better fans who are willing to listen to new ideas, So I think that would be, we need to advocate for that.
All right. So we don't have a lot of time left, but I'd just like to open it up and see if anyone has anything they would like to talk about Classic Who, maybe present a question or a comment.
Well, I prepared for the wrong panel because I was going to talk about the different shows and the episodes I liked. I didn't realize it was by Classic Who, but what's happening now. So I was way out of touch with that. But I really I think that Classic Who had some really great stuff, and I love a lot of the new Who. I think we've gone off down some paths now, which we won't talk about. But I thought, especially from the very first episode of the new Doctor, when it was Doctor 9, Eccleston, it won me over. But I really love a lot of the stuff that was done before, and I loved the things where you would have low budgets, but you would use your imaginations to create them. And especially, I really liked a lot of the writing. My favorite Who writer is still Terry Nation. I really love his work. And probably my second favorite is Robert Holmes, because I especially love all of his stories. I'm sure he's written a clunker here or there, but mostly I really like Holmes's stories.
Yeah, that clunker was called the Crotons, but it's okay.
Yeah,
say the Sunmakers.
Thank you very much.
What? Sunmakers, yeah, that's my favorite.
Oh yeah, I like Sunmakers too. Sunmakers is good.
Yeah. But I because the blurb for this panel was Doctor Who standing the test of time, and I feel like the reason it stood the test of time is they got it right from the beginning. Verity Lambert, Morris Hussein, they had a lot to prove because they were in that BBC old boys, good old boys, club where, it was like, oh, it's the woman, this is a guy of Indian descent, you guys can't do anything. And so they had to do a really great job on that first story. And then Verity, of course, taking it forward from there for those first 2 years. And there is a magic to those first 2 years that I don't think the show ever gets back. And as much as I love all 26 seasons of Classic Who, there are things about those first 2 seasons that I absolutely love and that the show went away from, after Verity left. And but it sort of laid the creative DNA for the entire series.
especially the doing a lot with no money.
Yeah.
That's,
And it's amazing when you see like the people who worked on Doctor Who and then went on to Hollywood and made all sorts of things, because it's like, when you learn how to do stuff with no money, then when you get a lot of money, you can do amazing things. So
I also think if you look at the mix of people on this panel, right? You've got Bill, you're probably the oldest. And then you've got myself and Matthew. Matthew, I think you and I are roughly the same age. I'm 32. And it really shows the cross-generational appeal of classic Doctor Who. And to Nathan's point, it 100% has, it has passed the test of time.
Well, and I'm of the generation where if Doctor Who were shown in America, I would have been the appropriate age for it in 1963 when it came out, because I was watching Lost in Space and My Favorite Martian and all these other things from 1963, and I was 10 years old. And discovering it as I did when I was in my 30s, it brought back my childhood a lot.
And I mean, I think if today's generation, if you can look past the occasionally ropey special effects, the stories that are there are phenomenal.
Absolutely.
They really do stand that test of time. And, I think it really is a wonderful generational epoch-defining show.
And Anthony, what you say is, back when we were starting the TARDIS, we would go out to tell people, don't pay attention to the special effects. Listen to the acting and the writing. And that's what we sold them on.
What I tell people when they're watching Classic Who is think of it as a play. Don't think of it as a television show. Think of it as a play. And if you think of it in that context, and the BBC grew out of plays, like the original BBC productions were them just pointing a camera at a stage where they performed a play. And so that sort of informs a lot of the early direction, especially in the 60s stories. And so then sort of the static shots and the lack of special effects and all of that kind of stuff, or the special effects that aren't as glitzy as even 1960s American television, then it starts to make sense, and it starts to be something. Just contextualize it that way. Don't expect something that looks like even Star Trek, in the 60s.
And to that point from Nathan, you look at what else was being shown on the BBC in the 1960s, and you had shows like Armchair Theatre. I mean, even they were still doing actual theatre on screen at the time, which is something they kept doing until the 90s. And that, again, as Nathan said, really is the tradition of British television.
Yep.
All right. And on that, we're going to start to wrap it up. But Bill, would you like to tell us a little bit about your other hobby that you've been
I'm something called the Atlanta Radio Theater Company, which to a large degree existed in parallel with the Mighty Rassilon Art Players, and sort of merged a lot of the personnel over the years. And we actually have a show we're doing at DragonCon this year. So it's all recorded and actually has been uploaded already to the servers. So you guys can watch this. I have no idea where this is relative to ours. I think we're on Sunday night is what we're going to be on, which is one of our traditional times. And so we have that. And audio drama is really great, both with Big Finish and especially us. I think we're better, but I'm extremely biased here. I will admit that.
All right. And Matthew, is there anything you'd like to talk about for the next minute or so?
Just keep watching Doctor Who, Classic Who on BritBox. Even if you don't have BritBox, you can get it on Amazon from the BritBox area. And if you can, I think they have it on Pluto as well, Pluto TV. So and support getting Classic Who on Blu-ray. By buying it, especially the new one right now.
That's right.
Buy the new one right now.
Pirating is not cool. All right.
Yeah.
Nathan, you want to tell us where we can find you?
Yeah, so I am the host of the 42 Cast, which is a show that's, it's about fandom, geekiness, and everything. But basically, we do a different topic and with a different cast every episode. But more germane to this panel is I've just started a podcast with my friend Juliet called Time Streams, where she's never seen any Classic Who. And of course, I've been watching it over and over again since I was 5. So a big dichotomy there between the two of us. But So we're watching through from the beginning. So we just finished recording Keys of Marinus a few weeks back, and we're going to do the Aztecs next week. And so, yeah, it's been a lot of fun for her having her fresh eyes, watching, and then for me to be like, well, after reading 18 reference books about this story, here's like all the any question she has, I could usually answer well, this is what they were thinking, or this is why they chose this over this, or things like that. And then when we get to New Who, she's going to be telling me why I'm wrong about New Who. So we're going to have a fun little switch up at some point. Although it's going to take a while to get there, but yeah, that's time.
You're like the doctor, and she's your companion.
Right? Exactly. Yes.
All right, Anthony, where can we find you these days?
So you can find me in two places. The first is also a Doctor Who podcast where we are watching our way through the entire show. We're a little ahead of Nathan. We're currently in the Patrick Troughton era. So we also have a first-time Classic Who viewer, Julie. You have Juliet. We have Julie. Wow, these things are...
yeah, I didn't think about that before.
Alan has actually guested on our show as a guest host for one episode. And I can also be found on a podcast called Sweet Radu's Musically Inclined, where we discuss the wonderful musical medium of heavy metal.
Ooh,
so not so related.
All right. And Alan, which of your many hats are you going to be talking about today?
My publishing company, Cosmic Press. We have done a number of Doctor Who reference books. So if you are interested in learning more about the classic series, check our website out and you'll find a couple of great books. I've got a children's picture book that will be coming out anytime now. As soon as I get a proof copy back from Ingram, that'll be ready to go. And a few other things. So definitely check out our website. Thanks.
That's exciting. All right. And of course, the BritTrack can be found on several different social medias. You can find us on Facebook, looking up the BritTrack at DragonCon. We're going to be on Twitter at BritTrack. We are on Instagram at DC BritTrack, and we are on YouTube. Just look at the BritTrack at DragonCon, and yes, that is my cat in the background. She's dying for attention.
Aww.
So, I just want to thank all our hosts here, Alan, Anthony, Nathan, Matthew, and Bill. It's been a great time. I really appreciate and have enjoyed having this talk with you. And to those of you watching us at home, thank you so much. We hope you join us for more panels. We have a ton coming out. And enjoy your DragonCon Goes Virtual. Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.